Hi there, I'm Coach Redpill.
A man of very limited intelligence. Somebody not to be taken seriously on an intellectual level. Why am I doing this? Because hugging people, what the fuck is that? You see, racism is basically a conspiracy theory. Stupid!
Our society, on the one hand, is hell-bent for leather on making men look bad. That men are stupid, that men are toxic, that masculinity is toxic.
When men say that a woman is a gold digger, on the one hand, it's absolutely true. All women are gold diggers, by definition.
Oh man, I'm dumber than I realized.
It just makes me cringe. Because from higher education, this cultural Marxism, the social justice warrior bullshit.
I'm like Gandhi.
Yeah, you are just like Gandhi, in that you're incredibly racist towards Africans. Hello there everyone, and welcome to episode 43 of The Descent of Man-osphere, the series where I take you through the ways in which the Man-osphere and its utterly disgusting, reprehensible douchebag inhabitants are trying to reverse human evolution and drag us all back into the fucking sea. And today we're dealing with a guy who was born in Chile, although he's lived much of his adult life in America and now lives in London in the United Kingdom, and his wife and children happen to live in the Ukraine. But apparently he's against immigration. Somehow. Yes, it's Coach Redpill. Now, many of you may not have heard of Coach Redpill because he's an up-and-coming channel in Manospherian circles and looks like he might do quite well in there because, you know, he's a propagandistic piece of shit. But it's interesting that he can connect with such a young man-baby audience given how fucking old he is. But let's start, shall we, with the obligatory compilation of this decrepit old fucker being misogynistic as fuck.
When men say that a woman is a gold digger, on the one hand, it's absolutely true. All women are gold diggers, by definition. Women are like dogs. They are exactly like dogs. And never forget that. When you date a woman, any woman you date, she is using you.
So according to Coach Redpill, women are gold-digging dogs. I defy anyone to come up with a way in which they can try and spin that as not being misogynistic as fuck. I mean, that's ridiculous, Jesus Christ. And talking of his misogyny, gives me an opportunity to kind of relaunch, although with a slight twist, an old segment that used to be part of this series, because now it's time for... Yes, it's the occasional bit about Lacey Green. Now, for long-time viewers, or indeed people who have binge-watched, back episodes of this series, they will remember that I used to do a segment in these episodes called The Almost Inevitable Bit About Lacey Green, where I would take you through the ways in which they've been incredibly sexist towards Lacey Green and try and defend her from that sexist bullshit from the people that she now refers to as friends. And the fact that she became so chummy with such fucking human garbage is precisely why I got rid of the segment in the first place. But now I've brought it back as an occasional piece, because even though she's done everything in her power to try and ingratiate herself with these fucking scumbags, lots of them still really don't like her. So this segment will very much be my way of backing up what I'd said in a previous video, which was that these people really aren't your friends, Lacey. And Coach Redpill really is not your fucking friend, Lacey.
Okay. Lacey Green is dating Chris Reagan. Likeable. And she talks about sex. She's all sex positive, as it were. Sex positive being a feminist euphemism for being a slut. Because it'll help you. Now, if I were friends with Chris Reagan, I'd say, dump this bitch because she's using you. It'll be a big payday for Lacey Green. She's going to make a lot of money off of this relationship with Chris Reagan. For him. But, she's not going to be around, say, August of 2018.
Yeah, so even though she's sold out her principles, stabbed former friends in the back, thrown her allies under the bus, and generally behaved like a shitlord prick for the past few months, lots of them still despise her. Lacey, was it really worth it? Now, just before we move on from Coach Red Pill's misogyny, I'd like to take a quick look at a video of his entitled The 3 Types of Feminists. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, but Kev, there are loads more than 3 types of feminists. I mean, there are sex-positive feminists, swerves, TERFs, anarcho-feminists, proletarian feminists, Marxist feminists, liberal feminists, etc, etc, etc. How can he possibly have boiled it down to only 3 types of feminist? Now, you'd be very right to ask that question, dear viewer. And by the way, may I say, how delightfully handsome you're looking. But the thing is, you'd ask that question on the basis that you are a thoughtful, intelligent person with a grasp of the topic at hand. All things not possessed by Coach Red Pill. So yeah, he's really not going to be doing anything by way of, adding to an intellectual conversation about different types of feminists. He's just going to be doing weak source propaganda shit. So this ought to be fun.
There are lots of channels, very good channels, on YouTube.
No, this website is fucking awful.
Lots of channels, very good channels on YouTube and the internet in general, that make fun of feminists.
Oh right, you meant the anti-feminist channels. Oh right, well, I refer you to my previous answer then.
There's just so much material that feminists are giving the internet. And feminism is just so irrational and so ridiculous that they are just begging to be made fun of. And there are a lot of very, very good channels that oblige. I'm thinking of channels like Sargon of Akkad, of Bering, of V. They look at a lot of the things that feminists say and just make fun of them, just take the piss out of them for good reason. And I mean, quite frankly, it's one of my favorite indoor sports. I mean, it's right up there with, like sex, squash, making fun of feminists. Those are my favorite indoor sports. Not necessarily in that order, because sometimes just making fun of feminists is more fun than getting laid, frankly.
Oh God, I do feel sorry for your wife. I can only hope that she's cheating on you. Hopefully with a Muslim, because that would be hilarious for me.
There has to be something about feminism that appeals to women, or else there would be no feminists. Now, it pays us to try to figure out what it is about feminism that draws these women into its clutches. Feminism, and make no mistake, is a pernicious influence on our society. It is actively causing damage to our society.
Well, I'm glad to see all of our efforts are finally being recognised. High five, everyone.
So, this is a first approach to sort of like categorizing women who become hardcore feminists. I've looked around the internet, not that closely, and I can't seem to find anybody who's gone out of their way to figure out what kind of women, what sort of women, become hardcore feminists. So this is, I suppose it's a first approach. And it's my own approach, and it's based on observation, on inference, a little bit of conjecture, but not because of that is it invalid.
Notice there that he didn't mention the word research in the list of things that had led him to these conclusions. Very telling.
It seems obvious that the first kind of woman who's attracted to it are these unattractive, often overweight women who are at the bottom of the sexual marketplace ladder.
So basically, your first type of feminist is ugly people. Right. That's ridiculous. I think the lack of research you've put into this is starting to show, considering you're not actually going to name any actual types of feminists, are you? Anyway, yeah, ugly people are attracted to feminism. I mean, basically what you're doing is pumping out Victorian era propaganda. I mean, why even fucking bother, you moron?
That's the first kind of woman. Now, the second kind of woman is different. She is moderately attractive to sometimes very attractive, but she has a very domineering personality. Yeah, she is a woman. You could say it that she has high T count or something, or whatever you want to call it, but she is domineering and forceful.
So basically, butch. You've gone with butch as your second type of feminist. Is this going to get academic at any fucking point? Are you actually going to go into any, theory or anything? Oh no, sorry, no, so you forgot to do the whole, research part of this.
Now, the third kind of woman that I've noticed is actually very interesting. These are sexually provocative women, very attractive women.
So women who are sexually free, or as I dare say you would call them, sluts. So your three types of feminists are ugly, butch and sluts. This is why you can't be taken seriously. Both you and your community, because this is the kind of shit you produce. This is your three types of feminist. Fuck off. Basically what Coach Red Pill has done here is taken modern technology and used it to pump out 150-year-old Victorian era anti-suffragette propaganda. I mean, why is he even fucking bothered? What a twat. Now, Coach Red Pill, like so many of his Manospherian fellow travellers, has one particular thing that he fucking loves to whinge about.
I think that there are a lot of people who are noticing it. But if you ever talk about it, you're immediately a racist, fascist, blah, 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 Hitler's, long lost child or some shit like that, right?
Now, of course, the people who are denying race are saying that those who are race realists are a bunch of racists.
Because you can insult white men all you want. You can kick them to death if you want to, verbally saying, of course. But if you say anything about some other, like a lesbian crippled black woman, if you say anything about her, and especially if she's overweight, you're branded a Nazi,
A word of advice for your coach. If you don't want to be called a Nazi, how about you don't continue to spread a conspiracy theory, which was started by the actual literal fucking Nazis, you moron, and has been continued by neo-Nazis ever since.
It is the cultural Marxism that has permeated higher education. Cultural Marxism, this leftoid, cultural Marxism, the social justice warrior bullshit. That's the problem with SJWs, that's the problem with cultural Marxists.
This cultural Marxism has metastasized to every level of government.
Yeah, and a quick reminder to everybody, if you think that cultural Marxism is actually a real thing that actually really exists, then you're a fucking idiot. But for all of the complaining and whinging and moaning that he constantly fucking does about people calling him a Nazi, there's nothing that Coach Red Pill loves more than to call other people a Nazi. Because he's such a fucking massive hypocrite that he loves to break Godwin's law at every possible fucking turn.
I tend to view the European Union project as the incarnation of the Fourth Reich, with Angela Merkel as the de facto Führer.
But the leftists, the SJWs, take them as members of a group and they look down on those groups. That's why they go on and on about racism, because they are the racists.
The European Union is falling apart. The European Union, everybody is realizing, is the Fourth Reich.
It seems to me that the globalist agenda is the real neo-fascism that's going on.
Yeah, he is a fucking whoosive hypocrite. But for all of the things he likes to call fascist, there's one thing that he doesn't like to call fascist. That being the actually fascist dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet.
The Pinochet dictatorship did not care what people did, except insofar as it affected the Pinochet dictatorship. It didn't care what they did, what they said, what they thought. They weren't trying to control people. They just wanted to not have any political opposition to their agenda.
Let me explain. Back in 1973, there was a coup d'etat. A Leninist Maoist regime headed by Salvador Allende was overthrown by a military coup, which implemented a series of economic reforms that created essentially the Chilean economic miracle.
Yeah, and what's especially interesting is that for all of Coach Red Pill's fucking rambling on about how much he supports democracy, the words he forgot to use in describing the Allende government, even though he described it as, Maoist and Leninist or whatever, two words he didn't add into that description were democratically elected. Yeah, he randomly forgot to mention that, it was a democratically elected government overthrown there. I mean, it's almost as if Coach Red Pill is totally full of fucking shit. And whilst we're on the topic of the Pinochet government and how it treated people, now it's time for a quick segment of... Yes, it's the inevitable bit about rape. Trigger warning. The upcoming piece has descriptions of graphic sexual assault. For those who might find this upsetting, skip forward to the time that is now on screen and you will avoid having to listen to that part. Now, what Coach Red Pill won't tell you, because he's a propagandist piece of shit looking to excuse away the crimes of the dictatorship, is that during Pinochet's rule, the use of sexual assault upon enemies of the state was widespread and systemic. Rape and sexual humiliation was commonplace in many of the political prisons of the state's secret service apparatus, most infamously at the prison known as the Discotheque, also known as La Venda Sexy, which was a political prison just outside the Chilean capital, Santiago. It was known as the Discotheque because of the loud music that was blasted in the compound in order to hide the screams of the inmates as they were being tortured. Torture that included the rape of both male and female prisoners. According to the Valech Commission, set up to investigate the torture meted out by the Pinochet regime, most inmates were raped repeatedly during their time at the discotheque, with women being particular targets of this abuse. Many women were raped by animals, and even had spiders attached to or inserted into the vagina or anus. One woman who spoke to the commission said that she had been raped and sexually assaulted by specially trained dogs and live rats. Also that she had been forced to have sex with both her father and her brother, both of whom were then disappeared, never to be seen again, so that was literally the last time she ever saw either of them. But even with all of these abuses committed by the Pinochet regime being common knowledge, known and understood by any Chilean, Coach Red Pill still defends the Pinochet regime, thereby tacitly condoning such absolutely unthinkable barbarity. What a piece of fucking garbage he is. And even though on occasion Coach Red Pill has paid lip service to opposing the Pinochet government, as we've all seen now, he doesn't actually oppose it in the slightest, and actually is a supporter of it by way of fundamentally sort of propagandistic apologism. Also, Coach, your description earlier of the Pinochet government as not wanting to infringe upon people's rights as long as they didn't oppose the government is fundamentally fucking stupid, because if you are literally murdering people who disagree with the government, then you are trying to control what they're thinking and saying, you fucking dickhead. Also, Coach, why is it that you as a supposed lover of free speech seem totally unmoved by the brutal suppression of free speech under the Pinochet government? Because in your fucking kaleidoscope helter-skelter world, the deplatforming of Milo Yiannopoulos is an absolute travesty that can't be put up with, but the literal murdering of political opponents by Pinochet is just fine. Like so many of your ilk, these fucking freeze peach warriors, right? You're not remotely interested in protecting free speech. What you want is for far-right scum to be able to propagandise in public without any backlash whatsoever. You fucking lying twats. Anyway, let's wrap this shit up because I'm so unbelievably fucking done with Coach Red Pill at this point. Right, fundamentally, Coach Red Pill is just an incredibly unimpressive person. And that wouldn't necessarily be of note in this series because basically every single person I've taken a look at is incredibly unimpressive. But it's of note on this occasion because he thinks of himself as some sort of suave, sophisticated, cultured sort of guru. I mean, he literally calls himself Coach Red Pill, like he's going to coach and teach and be some sort of professorial presence within the Man-osphere, teaching these young men, guiding them in the ways of manliness. And his videos are just insipid shit. There's just nothing of any substance in virtually any of them. And also, one extra thing I wanted to note whilst doing this wrap-up is that in his video where he takes the political compass test, and by the way, the political compass is a load of old shit, but during that video of his, he describes himself as identifying as white. I mean, he says, I identify as white. Now, the thing is, right, Gonzalo, because that's his fucking name, right? And that's not doxing, he reveals that in a different video. Gonzalo, You aren't white, okay? You're not. You're Latinx, I believe it's described as. You were born in Chile. You're Chilean. And what, obviously you can be white and Chilean. You aren't. You're Latinx, mate. And that's fine, right? Deal with that, come to terms with that. Because the thing is, these alt-right scumbags that you're chummying up to, they'll be nice to you in the short term because you're a useful idiot for them. But the thing is, at the very least, they'll kick you out of the country, regardless of what country that is, whether it's Britain or America or whatever, right? And that's the best case scenario if they get power. The worst case scenario is you'll be in the camps with me. So that's probably something we both want to avoid. So how about you, stop. But with all of that said and done, there's just one thing left for me to say to you, Gonzalo, Coach Red Pill. Go fuck yourself.
Scar tissue that I wish you saw. Sarcastic, missing know it all. Close your eyes and I'll kiss you, 'cause with the birds I'll share. With the birds I'll share this lonely view. With the birds I'll share this lonely view. Will push me up against the wall. Young cookie girl in a push-up bra. I'm falling all over myself to lick your heart and taste your health. 'Cause with the birds I'll share this lonely view. Hey. With the birds I'll share this lonely view. Hey. With the birds I'll share this lonely view. Little lost in the bathroom stall. A southern girl with the scarlet jaw. A wave goodbye to mine pie. 'Cause with the birds I'll share. With the birds I'll share this lonely view. Hey. With the birds I'll share this lonely view. Soft spoken with a broken jaw. Still by her side but not to brawl it. On a sweet will, call a fall. I'll make it to the moon if I have to crawl. And with the birds I'll share this lonely view. Yeah, with the birds I'll share this lonely view. Hey, with the birds I'll share this lonely view. Scar tissue that I wish you saw. Sarcasm, missing know it all. Close your eyes and I'll kiss you, 'cause the birds will share. With the birds I'll share this lonely view. Hey, with the birds I'll share